Board of Directors on Thursday, January 28, 2021. Before we begin with today's business, please ensure that you are in a quiet environment with no background noise. Uh-oh. I'm hearing myself, so somebody's echoing. Please mute your devices until called upon by the chair or the clerk to speak. To ensure we have an organized opportunity for everyone to speak, I will call upon each group separately. When your group number is called, please announce your name, then proceed with your comments or questions, and I will ask the public to speak after the board. Once called upon to speak, please unmute your device and speak. Then remember to put yourself back on mute again. And I'll just throw this in, Art, that goes especially for you. Hi. Okay. Joan, would you please read the special notice?
Yes. On March 4, 2020, Governor Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19. Public gatherings are to be limited. Further, on March 18, 2020, Governor Newsom temporarily suspended the Brown Act requirements pertaining to telephonic conferencing of local government meetings and the requirement to have at least one physical location available to the public for the purposes of attending the meeting. As such, RTA has opted to conduct the January 28, 2021 meeting via teleconference.
Thank you, Joan. And will you now take roll call?
City of Banning?
Here.
City of Beaumont?
Here, Ray Santos.
City of Calamasa?
Here.
City of Canyon Lake?
Here.
City of Corona?
Here.
City of Eastvale?
Here.
City of Hemet?
Here.
City of Jurupa Valley? City of Lake Elsinore?
Here.
City of Menifee?
Here.
City of Moreno Valley?
Here.
City of Murrieta?
Here.
City of Norco?
Here.
City of Paris? City of Riverside?
Here.
City of San Jacinto?
Here.
City of Temecula?
Here.
City of Wildemar?
Here.
County of Riverside District 1?
Here.
County of Riverside District 2?
Here.
County of Riverside District 3?
Here.
And County of Riverside District 5.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum. Participants, please remember to remute your devices. Chair Krupa, you're muted.
I am muted. Now I have to say that all over again. Okay, we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would stand, place your right hand over your heart and recite the pledge with me, that would be awesome. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the
to the
republic for which it stands,
stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Next up is public comments on non-agenda items. Joan, would you please read the instructions for public comment?
Members of the public may address the board regarding any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. However, no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to matters not listed on the agenda. Members of the public may comment on any matter listed on the agenda at the time that the board considers that matter. Each person's presentation is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes.
Joan, have you received any requests to speak in writing?
Yes, Chair Krupa. I received a request from Keith White, who asked his comment be read by staff.
Very good. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, RTA board members. I just want to let the public know that RTA does work with their customers and they do listen. Most times I am happy with the results. Sometimes we might not like the final decisions, but they do their very best to try to accommodate as best they can in these trying times. Thank you for listening. Please be safe out there and keep wearing your mask. Sincerely yours, Keith White, RTA passenger.
Thank you, Joan, and thank you, Keith. Is there anyone else on the line that would like to make a comment on items not on the agenda? Hearing no one speak, the public comment portion for items not listed on the agenda is now closed. The group assignments have been updated to include our newest members. Joan, please read the board member group assignments.
Thank you, Chair Krupa. Group 1, Alberto Sanchez, Ray Santos, Linda Molina, Bridget Moore, and Alonzo Ledesma. Group 2, Jeremy Smith, Jim Steiner, Timothy J. Sheridan, Dean Deans, Scott Vinton, and Zach Schwank. Group 3, Jocelyn Yao, Brian Berkson, David Marquez, Ted Hoffman, Malcolm Corona, and Andy Melendrez. And Group 4, Karen Spiegel, Jerry Sinsich, Michelle De Armand, and Art Welch.
Thank you, Joan. Moving on to item number 5 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the December 17th, 2020 board meeting. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the minutes? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 17th meeting.
Moreno Valley.
Moreno Valley is making a motion.
Calamasa second.
Calamasa is seconding. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions?
Menifee will abstain since this is my first meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one abstention from Menifee. Hearing no others, the motion does pass, and that is with one abstention. Thank you very much. Item number 6 is the consent calendar, and all items on the consent calendar will be approved by one motion, and there will be no discussion on individual items unless a board member or member of the public requests a specific item to be pulled from the calendar for separate discussion. Does any board member from Group 1 wish to pull an item from the consent? Group number 2? Group 3?
Group 3, Linda. Chair,
Did you want to pull an item?
I just have a question on 6J.
Okay.
Question. I'm asking now, or?
Yes, please ask it now.
Oh, okay. To staff on this SB1 that we're allowed to use the funds for repairing our equipment. Is that for, what's the period of time is that good for?
Director Marquez, this is Craig Maynard, the Chief Financial Officer. It depends on the year of the funding. The first year of funding has to be expended by January of next year, and we're well on our way to doing that. The second year of funding is through September of 2022, and the other years of funding have not been released yet, and I don't know the end dates of what the next 2 items that are listed on the report are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Are there any board members from Group 4 that wish to pull or comment on an item? Is there any member of the public that wishes to pull an item for discussion? Hearing none, I would like to have a motion to approve.
So moved, District 5.
District 5 is approving. Do we have a
Moreno
second?
Valley.
Moreno
Moreno
Valley
Valley.
is the second. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, going on to item number 7 is the agency investment policy, the agency investment policy annual update. Charlie Ramirez will report out on this.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Krupa, members of the board. My name is Charlie Ramirez, and I am the agency's controller. Per the RTA Board of Directors, the agency investment policy must be reviewed and adopted on an annual basis. The policy outlines 3 primary objectives for investments made by the agency. In order of priority, they are 1, to preserve principal, 2, to maintain liquidity, and 3, to achieve a maximum rate of return given the constraints of objectives 1 and 2. The current policy lists 5 positions eligible to initiate investment transactions. The controller position is one of those positions. Due to planned upcoming staffing changes, the controller position is expected to become vacant on March 2nd of this year and remain vacant into the near term. Therefore, there is but one recommended change to the investment policy for 2021, to remove the controller position from the list of authorized positions able to initiate investment transactions on behalf of the agency effective March 2nd, 2021. That change is noted in the draft policy attached to the staff report in bold, italics, and strike-through text. There are no other recommended changes to the investment policy for 2021. Therefore, the recommendation before you today is the following. Adopt the agency investment policy for 2021 with an effective date of March 2nd, 2021. And that concludes my presentation. Chair Krupa?
Thank you very much, Charlie. Does anyone in group 1 have any questions or comments? Group 2? Group 3?
Madam Chairman Norco,
Yes.
if we don't fill that position, how much are we saving on an annual basis in past?
Charlie, would you like to answer that?
Sure, I can answer that. The answer is it would depend. It's difficult to say what that would cost us if we went out into the open market and tried to fill it. We're not sure if it's going to remain vacant indefinitely, certainly for the rest of fiscal year 2021, which would take us through June 30th. So there will be some savings, at least for the next half year or so. And as we go into the FY22 budget, we'll look at where we can cut and trim and save to be as efficient as possible. I hope that answers your question.
I was just looking for a ballpark, but I think you did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Anyone in group 4? Group 5? Oops, I'm sorry, we don't have a group 5. Okay, any questions or comments from people in the public? Joan, did you receive?
I have not received any requests in writing, Chair Krupa.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, hearing no other comments, do we have a motion to adopt?
Corona moves.
Corona moves approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from District 5. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Going on to item 8 is to ratify emergency expenditures with Eastvale Urgent Care and World Back to Work for employees' COVID-19 testing. Authorize staff to amend agreement number 15-001 with Empire Transportation for COVID-19 testing, and authorize staff to amend agreement number 17-008 with Southland Transit for COVID-19 testing. Natalie Zaragoza will present.
Chair, and good afternoon, Chair Krupa and members of the board. My name is Natalie Zaragoza, and I'm the agency's Director of Contracts. As everyone is well aware, the agency, like all other businesses, has been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic since March of last year. These past 10 months have caused a great disruption to our economy and in the way business is conducted in general. It has been very difficult to keep up with the constantly changing state and local health department guidelines and their effect on our operations. While the agency has done everything possible to create and maintain the safest workplace environment for its employees and customers, the COVID-19 virus continues. This past fall, due to the increasing number of positive cases, the state of California's Department of Industrial Relations approved a new set of emergency temporary workplace safety and health regulations. This was at the end of November and immediately required employers take additional steps to protect workers who may have been exposed in the workplace. To comply with these new regulations, employers must follow the requirements for testing and notifying public health officials of workplace outbreaks if there are 3 or more cases in a workplace during a 14-day period, and then also to report major outbreaks, which are defined as 20 or more cases within a 30-day period. Because the agency had 3 reportable COVID-19 cases in the workplace during the week of December 1, per these emergency Cal-OSHA regulations, the agency was immediately required to make COVID testing available for employees who could have been exposed. The regulations also require that COVID testing be available weekly and must be provided during the employee's normal working hours at no cost to the employee, and the testing must continue until there are no new reportable cases in the workplace within a 14-day period. The regulations say that testing may be done through the employer, a local health department or clinic, a health plan, or at a community testing center. Staff evaluated all of those options and determined that based upon the type of operation we run, providing testing at RTA facilities through a local healthcare provider was the most efficient and cost-effective option. Therefore, on Saturday, December 5th, staff contacted several clinics and healthcare providers to obtain pricing for this mandatory testing and determine how quickly they could mobilize. In total, 16 providers were contacted, and a list of those is included as an attachment to the staff report in today's agenda. Based on staff research, only Eastville Urgent Care was able to mobilize and begin testing the next business day, which was Monday, December 7th. They were able to do this for both of our Riverside and Hemet facilities. This was quite an achievement to get this done over the weekend so that we would be in compliance with the Cal-OSHA guidelines come Monday morning. The test administered through Eastville Urgent Care is the rapid test that provides test results within 15 to 20 minutes. This enables employees that test positive to be relieved from duty immediately and thus limit potential exposure to other employees in the workplace. Eastville Urgent Care was able to provide these services for the weeks of December 7 and December 14. However, they were unable to continue testing beyond December 18 due to the availability of test kits. As a result, staff contracted with World Back to Work to continue these services starting the week of December 21. To add to this, during the month of December, the agency reached a major outbreak milestone by having 20 or more positive COVID-19 tests in an exposed workplace within a 30-day period, which required the agency to make testing available to employees twice a week. One thing that I'd like to point out is that while the regulation requires employers to make the testing available, employees are not required and cannot be forced to take the test. Also, with many administrative staff working remotely, their exposure from site visits is minimal, and thus, while it is available to them, there is less of a need. As of this writing, World Back to Work is providing these services and will continue to do so through the end of February. While the agency has been striving to address the new Cal-OSHA guidelines, the agency's 2 service providers, Empire Transportation and Southland Transit, are under the same mandates and are experiencing the same similar outbreaks of COVID-19 as we are. Like the agency, each contractor is now required to make testing available to its employees in order to continue to operate. As a reminder, transit service is considered essential regardless of whether the service is provided by RTA employees directly or by contract employees. Therefore, the agency must continue to provide service during the pandemic while doing everything possible to protect employees. Since the COVID-19 pandemic could not have been foreseen, provisions to accommodate Cal-OSHA's new emergency temporary workplace safety and health regulations were not included in the agency's contracts with its service providers. Staff recommends the agency amend the agreements with both Empire and Southland to provide financial assistance to meet the emergency Cal-OSHA regulations. Combined, Empire and Southland currently have 201 employees that are dedicated to the agency's contract. To that end, staff is recommending that the agency reimburse these two service providers for 50% of, or up to $80 the cost of each test for qualified contractor employees. With safety as the agency's #1 core value, the health and welfare of our employees, our service providers, our customers, and the public is paramount. Because of exigent circumstances and the need to procure these services to comply with the emergency Cal OSHA regulations, staff is asking the board to ratify expenditures to date and to authorize staff to continue testing services with World Back to Work through February 28, at which time staff will then assess whether the services may need to be extended, including contractor reimbursement for these services should infections continue to rise. As the COVID situation continues to unfold, staff will provide the board with updates at future meetings. The information included in this report was discussed with the executive committee on December 17, with the understanding that staff would return to the board of directors for ratification during the January board cycle. While the agency has 463 active employees, on average, 245 employees have elected to be tested weekly for the reasons stated above. The cost for COVID-19 testing for agency employees through February 28, including expenditures for actuals to date, is estimated to total approximately $550,000. The cost for contract employees, which is Empire Transportation and Southland Transit, for COVID-19 testing is estimated to be approximately $270,000, with the agency reimbursing 50% of those costs, so $135,000 in total. Expenditures for this request can be absorbed in the current board-approved FY21 operating budget. This item was discussed at the Board Budget and Finance Committee meeting on January 13. Committee members unanimously approved and recommended this item to the full Board of Directors for their consideration. Therefore, the item before you today is as follows. Ratify emergency expenditures with Eastvale Urgent Care and World Back to Work for employee on-site COVID-19 testing for agency employees in compliance with the emergency Cal OSHA guidelines in an amount that will not exceed $550,000 through February 28, 2021. Also authorize staff to amend agreement number 15-001 with Empire Transportation in an amount not to exceed $84,000 to cover 50% of the cost of COVID-19 testing for qualified employees. Authorize staff to amend agreement number 17-008 with Southland Transit in an amount not to exceed $51,000 to cover 50% of the cost of COVID-19 testing for qualified employees. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Are there any questions or comments from Group 1? From Group 2? From Group 3?
Yes, Madam Chair, Moreno Valley.
Yes, David.
Yeah, to staff, recovery of these funds that's coming from our budget. Do we look forward to any grants or the CARES Act and reimbursement?
Director Marquez, this is Craig Fainer, the Chief Financial Officer again. Yes, we are getting these costs reimbursed through the use of CARES Act funds and local transportation funds.
And when you say getting reimbursed, what's the percent are we getting reimbursed? Do you know offhand?
Well, yeah, with CARES Act funds, it's 100% federal share. There's not local, what is considered local match requirements in most federal funding agreements. So 100% of these costs will be funded through the use of CARES Act funds or local transportation funds.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else in Group 3? Group 4? Okay. Joan, did we get any written comments on this item from the public?
I did not receive any. Thank you, Chair Krupa.
Alrighty, thank you, Joan. Is there anyone on the line that would like to make a comment on this item? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Moreno Valley.
Moreno Valley approving. And I'm sorry, who's second?
District 1.
District 1 is the second. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Very good. Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. Next on is item number 9, to hold a public hearing on the fiscal year 2021 system-wide service reduction recommendations. Approve the recommended modifications to routes 1, 15, 18, 21, 26, 40, 202, 204, 205, 206, 208, 210, 217, and Rapid Link, and authorize staff to implement the recommendations during the May 2021 service change, and authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley service area. Kristen Warsinski will present. Kristen?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Krupa, members of the board. My name is Kristen Warsinski, and I'm the Director of Planning. Last month, we came to you with a proposed system-wide service change for 2021 in an effort to improve efficiencies and save resources during the pandemic, and asked for authorization to engage the public. We now have a presentation for you today that will summarize the proposed changes and review the results of our community outreach efforts. I'm going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to Russ Chisholm from Transportation Management and Design, or TMD, who assisted us with this effort, and Russ can start the presentation. Go ahead, Russ.
Thanks, Kristen. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here virtually. Why are we here? Due to the COVID-19, September of 2019 to September of last year by about 62%. Currently, the routes are operating at Sunday service levels, but performance on many of the routes remains low. Service has already been very streamlined. As you may recall, over the past several years, staff has worked closely to kind of refine and tune up the system. So there's not a lot of available things to do with it that are kind of what I would call low-hanging fruit. There's a need to reduce service levels in order to remain financially sustainable. Service will be evaluated on an ongoing basis, and future changes will be made in response to demand as we start to come out of COVID. Next, please. So the guiding principles for coming up with the reduction plan was first to maintain the core network. This is where the majority of people are riding. We don't want to downgrade frequencies of your strong performing routes. We want to maintain lifeline transit or lifeline mobility for riders who are relying on RTA. We want to ensure there's no major network gaps, and we want to look at more cost-effective alternatives where the fixed route service is not performing well. We want to reduce route overlap and duplication. We want to make sure that each of the remaining routes serves a unique role in the network and they're not competing with each other for the same riders. Routes with the lowest performance, those below 5 passengers per revenue hour. Pre-COVID, we took a look at those. And we wanted to compare 2019 and 2020 data to evaluate the reasons for low performance. For instance, many routes saw substantial decreases were those that carried a lot of students. So until we get back to normal with the schools, those routes will continue to carry many fewer riders. Next. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through and take a look at all of the changes. You can see a map on the side of the screen here, and you'll see a highlighted route. In this case, these are all local routes. We'll start with the local routes. This is a discontinuation of Route 26 in this fiscal year. That will not change. It will continue to be, we'll move forward with the discontinuation. Next. Want to discontinue low-performing fixed routes until demand returns. The first is Route 40 in Quail Valley. Route Tail, the very far western end of Route 1. The service that operates past Smith and Sixth will be discontinued. Riders can still access Metrolink at the Corona Transit Center, Route 15 west of the Galleria at Tyler. Next. Route 21 north of the Pedley Metrolink station. This is also one that's got a significant amount of overlap with two other routes. Next, please. And we want to gain efficiencies by reducing overlap between routes. The first is Route 18, south of the Moreno Valley Mall. You can see there is a significant amount of overlap with the other gray routes in that area. Next. And as ridership improves, we want to invest resources to meet demand. So this is kind of a summary. Moving on to the commuter link routes. Again, a significant drop in demand during the pandemic. Should mention that this is something that many systems have seen is a huge drop in longer distance commuting. The concern is here that not all of this is expected. A lot of people are discovering work from home. A lot of businesses are discovering work from home. So as RTA moves out of recovery with the commuter link services, paying particular attention to being able to match demand as it regrows will be important. I should also mention the commuter link service is very resource intensive. It basically, for most routes, it requires a peak vehicle for each trip. Tends to be inefficient use of the operators, and it's fewer riders carried long distance at a higher cost. And again, we have a high cost, we have currently very low demand, and we have an expectation that not all of it is going to come back. So at this time, the plan is to not restore service on routes that currently are not operating, the 202 from Temecula to Oceanside. Next. 217 from San Jacinto to Escondido. Want to stay consistent with the plans that are already in place for fiscal year 21, and that's discontinuing the 210 from Riverside to Beaumont. Continue. And we want to tailor service to match demand. The Route 204 from Riverside to Ontario is being able to match the demand more closely. 206 from Temecula to Corona. And again, here we're doing some retiming of trips, trimming some trips, and discontinuing service until demand returns for the 205 that operates from Corona to Orange County. 208 from Temecula to Riverside. And this is kind of the picture of all the routes. Okay, Hemet San Jacinto. Some notes on the current network. About 80% of all the riders in Hemet are within a quarter-mile walk of Florida Avenue, San Jacinto Street, and State Street. San Jacinto Street and State Street are the two green lines operating north-south. Florida is the purpley magenta line operating east-west. That's where the majority of the riders are. There's a lot of overlap and competition between routes. As you look at the gray lines here, you can see there's an awful lot of twisting and turning. And it's challenging to serve the various origins and destinations efficiently with fixed route alignments. So the proposal is to do a couple of things. Create a very strong 30-minute circulator between Hemet Valley Mall on the south and Mount San Jacinto College on the north. You can see the mall down south there. It's in the pink color, and the blue color is MSJC up north. And so this will be kind of a major anchor. And again, we're going to continue the Florida service, which is the purple line going east-west, and we have the green line. Now, in addition to those two routes, we're planning to operate microtransit service in the area that's kind of tan brownish color. What is microtransit? Microtransit operates to a great degree like other kind of ride sharing services like Lyft or Uber, but it's a fully public service. Riders will be able to request a ride through an app or on the phone and travel between any existing bus stops in the zone. So everybody that's currently using the fixed route will have access to this microtransit. They'll have to use it at their current stops, but they'll be able to go anywhere in this tan area. And if they want to travel out of the region, they can either go up to Mount San Jacinto College to transfer to the 31 going north, or they can connect down at Hemet Valley Mall to either go west on Florida or heading south on Route 74. There'll be a guaranteed 60-minute response time. By guaranteed, that means within 60 minutes, you'll be picked up. It may just be a few minutes, but the guarantee is that you'll have to plan your trip no more than an hour in advance. The riders will have a more direct trip to their destinations. Like right now, many times these are very infrequent routes. If you want to travel within Hemet, you have to transfer from one infrequent route to another infrequent route. In this case, they won't have to transfer within Hemet. They'll be able to go from where they start at that stop to the stop that's nearest their destination without a transfer. The anticipation is it'll take about 2 to 3 vehicles to cover the area, significantly fewer resources than what RTA is doing today with big buses. Are there any questions on that? Okay, if there are later,
I think we'll just keep going, Russ, and we'll do that at the end.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, so moving on, I think I turn it over to Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. So every time RTA makes service changes, it's required by federal regulations laid out in the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to make sure that the changes do not disproportionately affect low-income or minority populations. So the first step is to look at RTA's definition of a major service change, which under RTA's policy states a change of 25% or more to hours, miles, or routes, hours, miles, or alignment. So all of the route changes proposed here, with the exceptions of routes 1 and 15, are more than a 25% change in the route. And so we'll be evaluating them further to look at their impact on minority and low-income populations. So the next step is to look at each route's, the population that's within half a mile of each route, to see if the population served has a higher than system area average concentration of low income or minority residents. And if the area is 20% above the system average, then these are going to be qualified as low income or minority routes for Title VI purposes, where there might be a potential disproportionate impact on these populations. So for these routes, you're still allowed to make the service changes. You just have to make sure that you've either identified mitigations or alternatives for these riders, or that you have you've laid out very clear explanations for why the changes are being made, tying it back to Russ's guiding principles for the development of the changes. And so here, we looked at which routes fell above the higher than average threshold, which fell above the 20% greater than the system area average. But to be conservative, we looked at all routes to see what mitigations were in place. And we found that for routes 18, 26, 31, 32, 33, 42, 74, 208, and 210, riders on all of these routes still have access to RTA transit service within a quarter or half a mile walk, either fixed route or the new microtransit services. They may not be able to use the route that they're riding today, but they still have access to a comparable nearby service. Riders on routes 204, 205, and 206 all have access to the same span of service, from same time in the morning to the same time in the evening, but they may not have as many trips to choose from, or might not be able to take their same trip, but still have access to a full span of service. The only change where there's really no alternative service available is on Route 21, which is a low income route. However, this route is not, the low income percentage is not greater than 20% higher than the system average. So there's no official disproportionate burden under RTA's Title VI policy. This segment also costs an estimated $433,000 a year to operate and serves 2.5 passengers per revenue hour, which falls below the 5 passengers per boarding threshold that we've used to justify the service changes. And so with that, pass it over to Kristen to talk about the community outreach.
Thank you, Russ and Melissa. That was Melissa Sater. That was my fault. She's also from TMD on the team working on this project. So we went out and we did community outreach. After the board approved staff to go out for public comments, we released a service change guide that was available on our buses and our website. Notifications went out via rider alerts and social media. We also posted the public hearing notice in the newspapers. We held 4 virtual community meetings on Zoom. I also recorded a video explaining the proposed changes and posted that to RTA's website so people could watch instead of just looking at slides, but actually hear a presentation. We accepted comments in all the forms that we normally do: email, phone, mail, social media, and at the community meetings. And we accepted comments through January 22nd. So attachment A provides a summary of the comments received as of the writing of the report, which was Wednesday, January 20th. The majority of the comments received were regarding routes 1, route 15, and route 208. For route 1, passengers were primarily concerned about access to Metrolink, but we will still be going to the Corona Transit Center so they can catch trains there. The route 208, we heard from UCR students and faculty who said that they use the 208 when school is in session and they're traveling to campus. So they just asked that we keep an eye out for when UCR returns to on-campus learning, and if we could look at putting the route back at that point. They did acknowledge that they're not using it right now. For route 15, we heard from a group of seniors living in an apartment complex on Indiana. So we are recommending a change to what you saw, what Russ showed you, and I will show you that in just a minute, but we're recommending a change to address the need for the seniors. We also received a large number of comments about the Hemet San Jacinto plan. The majority of those comments were more about trying to understand how microtransit would work and if they would still be able to take the trips that they're taking right now. In talking with them, most of them, once we discussed the fact that the bus stops they're using now will still be there, they'll still get on at the same bus stop and off at whatever bus stop they want, but without transfers, they wanted to know if they could make reoccurring appointments, which they can. They wanted to know if they could do same-day appointments, which they can. I think there's going to be a lot of education and training as we work through this and figure out how to set this up. Since the writing of the report, we did receive 6 additional comments, and 4 of them were regarding specifically Route 206 and the proposed elimination of the 4:31 p.m. trip. So we are monitoring ridership on that trip. We've been going out to the transit center and watching people boarding and counting. So we'll make some adjustments to which trips we cut. We'll run as many trips as TMD identified, because that meets our demand right now, but we'll adjust the schedule to make sure that those people that are getting on at 4:31 don't have to wait a long time in order to get home after they've already been on the train coming home from work. For Route 15, we heard from a group of seniors who live on Indiana, and they use Route 15 to run their errands, to go shopping, go to medical appointments, all kinds of things. And they were concerned. The initial suggestion was to cut service on Indiana and just use Magnolia and Tyler, and they were concerned that they wouldn't have service. So what we're proposing is to reconfigure Route 15 to run up La Sierra and take Indiana to Tyler, and then come back up Tyler and take Indiana to La Sierra. That maintains service to the senior apartments that are in that area and also to the La Sierra Metrolink station. And it removes duplication of service on Magnolia where we already have the Route 1. This will provide comparable savings while making sure to provide service to those seniors who need it. So based on current service levels, the proposed changes results in $3.4 million in savings per year. And before I get into the recommendation, I wanted to address something that I'm sure everyone's wondering, and something that came up in December, which is, will this result in layoffs? And the answer is not at this time. We do not plan any layoffs at this time, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. Right now, even with running Sunday service, with the amount of COVID leave and other things we have going on, sweepers that we have to put out on top of routes, we're using all the drivers that we have. So until things calm down from that, we need everybody that we have. In addition to that, this will allow us, keeping these drivers will allow us to respond as demand starts to improve. We suspect that things are going to start to get better. And as people come back to transit and start riding, having the drivers, we already have the vehicles, we'll be able to respond and get service out. We are also hearing that UCR, Cal Baptist, some of the other colleges will be coming back in the fall, and that they're expecting to have ridership. So we really need to wait and see what our new normal looks like, what our ridership levels look like, before we would make any sort of recommendation to do that. And any layoffs we do identify in the future, we would bring back to the board for consideration. That being said, the recommendation before you is to hold a public hearing on the FY21 system-wide service recommendations, approve the recommended modifications to routes 1, 15, 18, 21, 26, 40, 202, 204, 205, 206, 208, 210, 217, and Rapid Link, and authorize staff to implement the recommendations during the May 2021 service change, and authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley to include modifications to routes 31, 32, 33, 42, 74, and 79. Staff will return to the board with a plan development update and authorization to request final approval for that program. And thank you, Chair Krupa. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Russ and Melissa. Excellent presentation. Okay, we're going to ask any questions or comments from group number 1. Group number 2. Group number 3.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Melendrez.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. I do have a couple questions, and it has to do with the third recommendation. I think the first two are pretty clear that our employees are going to remain. But on the third recommendation, it indicates, and I just need clarification on this, it says authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan for the Hemet San Jacinto area. The last time we spoke and this was brought up, we were wondering, or the question was asked as to whether it was going to be contracted out or if the microtransit would be held in-house, that services be provided in-house. So when we talk about preparing, what does that exactly mean at this point? Does it mean that we're going to be, I mean, do we have the equipment or the vehicles to provide the type of service that we're talking about under microtransit? The presenter did indicate that it was like a Lyft and Uber service. So maybe we could get further clarification on what they mean by preparing a microtransit plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Director Melendrez, thank you. We do have the vehicles what we're thinking is we would use the dial-a-ride vehicles. Our dial-a-ride ridership is quite low right now, as you can imagine. So the initial thoughts is that we would use that. We would use the existing bus stops that are already out there in the valley, at least initially. So from a capital side, we're covered. Now, as far as who's going to run the service, right now the routes identified in Hemet that would change our contract operations routes. So they're not run by RTA employees, but the contract ops. And we don't know exactly who would run it. We're going to have to do an RFP and solicit proposals and see how people propose that we do this type of program before we can identify exactly who would drive the microtransit vehicles. But the intent is we would probably use our dial-a-ride vehicles.
So in this case, would there be any possible way that RTA could handle that microtransit rather than going out? I mean, obviously if we have the equipment that's laying around and we have drivers that obviously need to continue to be employed. We also have mechanics that could be affected. Would we be able to look at that in-house rather than preparing a request for proposal or anything else? Again, these are just questions that I have in regards to it.
Director Melendez, Larry Rubio here. That analysis has yet to be done. We have to cost it out to see what's going to be most cost effective, and that'll all be brought back to the board for consideration.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to know every step of the way. Obviously, I think all of us are very protective of our employees and feel that they've done an excellent job, not only the drivers, but many in the maintenance, the maintenance garage. So thank you for that. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director. Are there any other people from Group 3 that have questions or comments? Okay, how about Group 4?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is District 1.
Okay.
I do have
District
a question.
1? Yes.
Yeah, and this is a segue from the previous question on microtransit. What criteria will be utilized to utilize a microtransit service for other area routes?
Thank you, Director Sinsich. I think that the thought right now is to do this pilot program in the Hemet San Jacinto area and really get our staff to understand how this works before we can apply it in other areas. Transit agencies across the nation are using this, and it's typically in more rural and suburban areas where they find this to be more effective. But we'll have to see how it goes and then look at what other routes or areas we think are appropriate. As far as who would be able to use microtransit, it would be open to everybody, just like a fixed route. It's not like a dial-a-ride where you have to qualify. It would be everybody.
No, and thank you for that. I do understand that part. I was just wondering what would be and you answered the question, what would be the criteria to determine what other routes would be included or potentially you identified for use of a microtransit service. So thank you.
District 2, did you have a comment?
Yeah, mine's just a comment, not a question. And that is to all the staff that worked on this. It is not easy to cut routes because we know that we are helping, even if it's one individual, it doesn't get easier at all to cut a route. And thank you for the hard work, because I don't remember the last time we had this many changes at one time. It is an awful lot, but it was, I can tell by your presentation how conscientious and strategic it was. And thank you for your efforts and your whole team.
Thank you, Karen. Any other questions from any of the members, any of the directors that have come up because of comments of other directors?
Madam Chair.
It's a big item. Yes, Michelle.
Michelle DeArmond with County Supervisorial District 3. Just one more question about microtransit. Staff mentioned the communication and education piece that was going to be a big part of just getting the word out about this. And I wonder if you can expand on that at all and tell us a little bit about what you know at this point in time in terms of how you're going to be reaching out to those communities out there.
Yes, thank you, Director Arman. So far, I've been keeping a list of everybody that I've spoken with, and I'm keeping their contact information, and they've been told that when we move through this and get to the point where we know what it's going to run like and be like, that we would contact them for training. We can put videos on the website to train people. We can offer group trainings. Hopefully, we'll be able to get out and do community meetings, and we can hold community meetings out in Hemet and San Jacinto and meet with the people that are out there and make sure that they're comfortable. Whatever it takes, we're not above, my staff is willing to go out and walk with somebody and help them get on. It's whatever it takes to make them comfortable with microtransit, we will be doing. And then we'll also be working with marketing, and there'll be a marketing component to the rollout plan, and we'll bring that back to the board.
Thank you. If our office can be of assistance in any way with our different communication tools, we'd be happy to help communicate with the public about that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Then right now, I would like to formally open the public hearing period for the fiscal year 2021 system-wide service reduction recommendations. Approve the recommended modifications to Route 1, 15, 18, 21, 26, 40, 202, 204, 205, 206, 208, 210, 217, and Rapid Link, and authorize staff to implement the recommendations during the May 2021 service change, and authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley service area. Today also marks the conclusion of the public hearing period for the fiscal year 2021 system-wide service reduction recommendations. Approve the recommended modifications to routes 1, 15, 18, 21, 26, 40, 202, 204, 205, 206, 208, 210, 217, and Rapid Link, and authorize staff to implement the recommendations during the May 2021 service change, and authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley service area. Publication of this hearing was made at least 30 days prior in newspapers and on RTA's website. Staff produced a booklet summarizing the proposed changes, which was available online and on the buses. With social distancing and stay-at-home orders in place because of the COVID-19 pandemic, staff created a website and video explaining the proposed changes and held virtual community meetings via Zoom and posted information in the RTA reader and on social media. Customers were invited to comment on the proposals by phone, email, traditional mail, or by attending one of the 4 Zoom meetings. If you planned on making a comment today, you should have already submitted a request to speak. If you do wish to speak but have not completed a written request, please wait till I ask for any comments from the public. When I call your name, please unmute your phone and state your comments. We will ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. I do show that we have received 1 comment to speak in writing from Keith White, and he has asked that his comment be read by staff. Joan, would you please read Keith's comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair Krupa. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. I disagree with the Route 15 line change because there are senior apartments on Indiana and Tyler, and not all seniors qualify for Dial-A-Ride or Riverside Special Services. I was able to discuss this with RTA staff Kristen Warsinski yesterday. I am pleased to learn that my comments, along with comments from others, were considered, and an adjustment for the Route 15 has been included in the proposed changes. Thank you, RTA staff. Sincerely yours, Keith White, RTA passenger. And Chair Krupa, we have 2 folks on the line that have requested to speak, Mauro Varela and Glenn Leader.
Okay, go ahead. The first one was Mauro.
Mauro Varela, yes.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, directors. My name is Mauro Varela. I am the treasurer and representative of ATU 1277 at Riverside Transit. I would just like to remind the board of the conversation that I brought up at the last board meeting regarding the micro transit. And I believe the conversation, Mr. Rubio had said that that RTA would reach out to the union and negotiate the micro transit and how it would be handled. And if at hearing at today's meeting, it sounds like there is intent to go out and request an RFP. I would just like to make sure that the comments that I had made at the last meeting are taken into consideration, and that RTA reaches out to the union to talk about the micro transit, which will impact some of our operators and potentially our maintenance personnel. And I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments on that. The next speaker.
Glenn Leader.
Glenn Leader.
Thank you, Glenn. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm Glenn Leader. I'm a San Diego County resident, and I depend on the 202 and 217 to get from Oceanside and Escondido, respectively, to Southwest Riverside County, particularly Temecula. I have obviously not been able to do that since COVID hit. And so I'm no longer able to visit people who live out there. My concern is, I'm concerned as to how soon it will be possible to bring back at least partial service to those two routes. I did speak out at one of the community meetings last month, and it doesn't sound like it's known when that's going to happen. I'll waive the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. Does staff want to comment on this, or has this been taken care of?
Yes, thank you, Chair Krupa. Mr. Leader, as we discussed, we have to wait for demand to return and then look at what areas demand is returning in and make sure to focus our resources where we can help the most riders. But we are keeping an eye on this. We did also receive a suggestion about looking at partnering with one of the San Diego transit agencies on a route. So that is something else that we will be exploring as demand starts to return and we look at what we can do for that.
Thank you very much, Kristen, for that. And is there anyone else on the line that would like to make a public comment on this item? Okay. Thank you for all your comments. The public hearing period for fiscal year 2021 system-wide service reduction recommendations approve the recommended modifications to routes 1, 15, 18, 21, 26, 40, 202, 204, 205, 206, 208, 210, 217, and Rapid Link, and authorize staff to implement the recommendations during the May 2021 service change, and authorize staff to prepare a micro transit service plan for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley service area is officially closed. Okay, directors, do I have a motion to approve this item?
Murrieta moves.
Murrieta is moving approval. Do we have a second?
Moreno Valley.
I'm sorry, Moreno Valley?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Moreno Valley second. Okay, are there any no's?
Commissioner Krupa, I do have, this is Council Member or Director Melendrez. I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
And I didn't know if you were going to go through our segments, but The concern I have again is the microtransit. And I think if we are going to be looking at service cutbacks, that if we're going to be making a preparation for microtransit, we need to do that with our employees first and have that microtransit plan come to the board with our existing equipment and our existing employees first before we consider alternatives. I think our employees are deserving of that opportunity. I think that's important that we look at our employees as obviously very, very committed. But I think that third recommendation is to authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan within RTA first, prior to it being considered to contract out. So that's how I would want to modify that third item. And I hope the maker of the motion is willing to modify or amend the motion to include that we look at a microtransit service plan with existing employees and existing equipment first.
Hey, Barbara, are you on here? Legal?
Yes, sorry. So I was going to say, Director Melendrez, if you want to make a modified motion to reflect what you just stated, you can go ahead and do that. And then we would consider the modified motion first to see if there's a second to that. And if there's not, then we could return to the initial motion.
Thank you for the clarification. Then I'll go ahead and oh, I hear feedback somewhere. So I'll go ahead and support the first two items. And the third item is authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan in-house with existing employees and existing equipment first, prior to considering alternatives for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley, to include modifications to Route 31, et cetera. Everything else remains the same on that.
Madam Chair, this is Art, District 5. I don't have a real problem with this. My concern is that we're asking RTA staff to set aside any comparatives that they would be able to do if they consider both those together or at the same time. Looking at the welfare of our employees first, that's fine. And I think it should be that, but I don't think we ought to say, do that study and then come back and do the other. I think it would give them a more realistic idea of what we really can do by comparison of the two. So I'd like to see them both together. We can take, Andy, your suggestion first, but also include, don't make another study out of it for them.
Well, I don't think, I think staff could also be looking at, I mean, they've looked at it already, I'm sure. But I think our employees deserve first shot at this and working internally. Yeah, before.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but the way you're reading it, it eliminates that second effort until the first one's accomplished.
Well, yeah, I think our employees deserve that first effort, and we look at that, and then if it's not a workable solution, then obviously you look at the second. What's the alternative? But it doesn't prevent them. They've already done I think the exploration. They've kind of looked into microtransit already. They have some idea of how it works, but and that's just purely speculation. Yes, Mr. Rubio.
Yeah. Yes, Larry.
Chair,
yes.
We have not explored microtransit. We've just given you an overview of it, and that's about as in-depth as we've gotten. Now, we need clarification because those routes in Hemet and San Jacinto that we're proposing to eliminate are not operated by RTA direct employees. They're operated by Empire Transit employees. and they're operated by buses owned by RTA, but those buses are operated by Empire Transit. So to say that you want them to be handled by RTA employees, they're not currently operated by RTA employees. They're handled by Empire employees. So I'm a little confused on what the direction would be.
Okay, well,
That's my concern.
Yeah, hopefully I can clarify that. Obviously, if the contract services of who's ever contracting that is not going to be operating the fixed route in that area, it's a service area that's not being provided by anyone unless we get a microtransit agency operating in that area or expand to include RTA employees to provide services in that area, as I understand it. So we have an option as to whether we want to contract out to a microtransit agency, or we can use existing RTA equipment and employees to service that area, since there's going to be a void there. My recommendation is basically saying, let's look in-house to see what we could provide and how we could provide the microtransit service for that area prior to considering contracting that out. And this can probably be done in the same meeting, and mean that you can't look at anything, but I think our employees deserve the opportunity.
Director Krupa, if I may, this is Barbara Rayla, new General Counsel.
Yes.
And Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that motion may be, or the amended motion may be a little premature at this point. And it seems like you're not at that point yet to make those decisions. And if, it seems like what we're trying to accomplish today through the original motion can still be voted on, but then give direction to staff that if there is a change to that microtransit that may affect RTA employees in the future, that item might be brought back to the board for consideration. Would that be something that might work instead of the amended motion?
That would work for us.
Yeah, I think the way it's written here is way too vague, because it really does not provide our employees assurances that they will be considered for. I think somebody has their mic on, so, but it doesn't provide that, and I was hoping to get that clarity in the motion.
If I could interject, it's my understanding of the way this is written and the way it was proposed, that RTA would be doing their due diligence both with employee consideration, route consideration, and equipment and cost consideration, and then bringing that comparison back to us for the board's consideration when they find all of the facts and have a plan with a plan comparison laid out, and then bring that back to the board for discussion going forward. Larry,
Yes.
Am I correct in my assumption and how I'm reading this?
Absolutely correct, Chair Krupa.
So Director Melendez, how do you wish to go forward?
Well, I think maybe hearing from Mr. Rubio about how you're reading this first one again, just so that I'm clear, because when I read it, it basically says authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service. It does not indicate that we would be looking at our employees first. And that I just wanted to make that part clear, because I think it's important that we look at our employees, and obviously we speak very highly of them, and we want to make sure that we're giving them every consideration. And I wanted to make sure that that was in the motion, and that they were assured that we would be looking at a in-house microtransit plan first and give them first opportunity.
No, sir. It would not be first opportunity or first right of refusal, but they would be given every opportunity. We would work with the labor union, but we couldn't say it would be theirs exclusively. We have no negotiating power if we did that. But they would certainly be, as I said before, we would work with them to see what type of deal we could put together. But ultimately, the decision rests with the board, and the majority of the board would make that decision. The options would be presented to the board.
Okay, would you bring back to us a plan that includes our existing employees and equipment?
Those options would be presented to the board with the existing employees. It could also be with the existing employees, sir, are the Empire Transit employees, and that would be a consideration. It could be a consideration with the ATU employees as well, and with contracting the entire operation out.
Well, the contract Southland wouldn't be operating that area since there would be no service. So I would say utilize our current RTA employees for that area.
It's currently contracted out, sir, and that would be an option as well to the board. It's the board's decision. The options would be presented to the board.
Okay. But I just wanted to make sure that we had employees looked at first, and obviously before we contract anything out. So as long as we've outlined that, employees, obviously, we're going to see a plan, in-house plan to make that compared to contract work. I'd be okay with that, but I would always also say that employee, our internal employees, be given first consideration. So.
Okay, so with Barbara, what are our options here for the amendment to be withdrawn on the third one, and since there was no second, or do we go forward to get a second?
Well, Chair Krupa, it sounds like, and I could be wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Director Melendrez, but if you are comfortable with the direction that's been discussed right now, then you can withdraw your motion, and that would be the simplest way to proceed.
I'm going to go ahead and include in my motion that RTA employees, our employees, not Southlands, but RTA's employees be given first. We'd like to see a transit plan involving them first. That does not mean that RTA can't explore the but we want to look at theirs first before we approve anything else. I mean, if we go beyond that. So that's all I would say. It's a matter of a couple words that in-house plan be looked at.
So Chair Krupa, you would then see if there's any more discussion. You could ask for a second, see if there's any more discussion. If there's a second, and then you can take a vote after there's no more discussion. But if there's no second.
There's my motion on the floor. Let's see if I have a second.
Okay, do we have a second to Ms. Director Melendrez's amendment?
Yes, the City of Paris seconds that.
Okay, is there any more discussion on the amendment? Hearing none. Let's see. Can we do this the same way, Barbara, that just asking for any no's, or do we have to do a roll call?
That's correct. You can do it the same way for the amended motion. You can ask for any no's from each of the groups. Or actually just in general, you could see if there's any no's.
I'm sorry, Chair Krupa, I'm sorry. It's
yes.
Bridget from Waldemar. I have to say I'm a little bit still confused. Larry has already stated that we're going to come back with options that the board is going to decide on. And the board is going to decide regarding the contract, regarding the employees, regarding everything about this new transit. So I'm kind of confused on this second motion.
I am too.
Well, we do have the motion on the floor to the amendment to add that or change that portion. So we're going to have to vote on it unless both parties will revoke their motion and their second.
Madam Chair, Moreno Valley.
So don't we technically have two, because we had a motion and a second on the first. So.
Correct.
Right. So you have to consider the amended motion
the amended
first.
Comes first.
If that passes, yeah, and then you go back to the original.
Okay.
So because there may, I don't know at all, but because there may be more no's, you may want to do it by groups instead of asking for a general no.
Okay. Joan.
Madam Chairman, this is Ted from Norco. I know you're in the middle of your vote. I want to clean this up a little bit, if I may be a suggestion, and maybe our attorney has a better suggestion, but at this point, if we're going to do this, I'd like to see this separated because you have 3 parts of this, and maybe we could take the latter part of that with the transit, microtransit, and separate it if that's all possible, rather than trying to go this route.
That is what the amendment addresses the 3rd part.
Correct, but I'm just saying we're going to vote on all 3 of these, and rather than do that, or at least the 2 of them, and separate them, if that's even a possibility.
You're back on, Barbara.
That's my 2 cents.
It would be a possibility that would be a 3rd motion that we would consider, and basically,
okay.
I think since it seems like there's agreement, at least in the 2 motions, about the first 2 items, and the only issue is relating to the microtransit. And with respect to that, the amended motion, all it does is ask staff to consider RTA employees first, and present any options regarding that back to the board before any changes are made that might affect RTA employees. I will add this. I don't know if it may affect the motion or not, but I mean, under the meet and confer requirements under the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, to the extent that current existing RTA employees are impacted by any decision to contract out, there is an obligation to meet and confer with the unions regarding that. As a result, you know, the obligation to consider RTA employees is basically already legally required. So it's already something that they would be obligated to consider, and so it may be unnecessary to make this amended.
Exactly, and we would like to see what that plan is, see if it's worked or not. I mean, that's all it is. We want to see that plan before we see the micro. And you know, it could probably be all on the same day, but we want to see the employee plan first.
But Director Melendez, staff's going to bring back all the options. So the board, you and the rest of the board are going to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So that is in the motion. That's already going to happen.
Director Spiegel.
Yeah, I've got my motion on the floor. I just wanted to make clear that we were looking at our employees.
Yes, Director Spiegel.
Thank you. I think we are looking at our employees. We always have looked at them first. We've already said that. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. And just as we've just been shared, as that is an obligation that we have. So we will not move forward on anything. So I'm not sure exactly, and I don't want to get in further discussion. I think we just need to move forward, but I'm not sure how different that really is, what you're talking about, looking at the employees first, because that is the intent. That's what Larry says. We're not laying anybody off because we do care about the employees. We're finding other uses of their time so they can be paid. So we're not laying people off. Very sensitive to it. Larry's already set precedents for that. And I think this is definitely precedent setting because it's not really a decision. It's just garnering more information. So I call for the question.
Yes.
Thank you. So what we are voting on is the items 1 and 2 in that, the way they were stated, with the amendment of Director Melendez to add the verbiage that we will look at our employees' first consideration as we are legally obligated to do. Am I correct on restating that, Barbara?
He never said anything about legally obligated. The attorney did, and that's what I was trying to say. His motion is no different than what we're obligated to do.
Okay. So Joan, would you go by group and ask for, are there any no's?
Absolutely, Chair.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Because there's so much confusion on this particular motion, at your discretion, do you think it'd be best if we just do a roll call vote on this?
That's basically what we're going to be doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Joan,
I'm going to do a roll call.
Yes, please
Okay.
go ahead, Joan.
City of Banning. Yes or no, City of Banning?
No.
City of Beaumont?
No.
City of Calamasa. City of Calamasa. I will return to you. City of Canyon Lake.
No.
City of Corona.
No.
City of Eastvale. I will return. City of Hemet. You're on mute, Chair Krupa.
No.
City of Harupa Valley. Did he join? City of Lake Elsinore.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. City of Lake Elsinore? Yay.
Yay. Aye. Yes.
City of Menifee?
No.
City of Moreno Valley?
Madam Chair and staff, I'm going to abstain from this vote for my complete I don't understand, and I don't want to give a yes or no vote at this time.
Thank you. City of Murrieta?
No.
City of Norco?
No.
City of Paris?
Yes.
City of Riverside?
Yes.
City of San Jacinto? City of San Jacinto? I'll return. City of Temecula?
No.
City of Wildemar?
No.
County of Riverside District 1?
No.
County of Riverside District 2?
No.
County of Riverside District 3?
No.
County of Riverside District 5?
No.
I'm going to return. City of Calamasa?
No.
City of Eastvale? And then City of San Jacinto. I'm not sure if San Jacinto and Eastville are still with us. However, we have 3 yays, 1 abstention, 15 noes.
Okay, so the amendment fails. We will go back to the original recommendation. And do you want me to read that again? It is the public hearing period for fiscal year 2021 system-wide service reduction recommendations. Approve the recommended modifications to routes 1, 15, 18, 21, 26, 40, 202, 204, 205, 206, 208, 210, 217, and Rapid Link, and authorize staff to implement the recommendations during the May 2021 service change, and authorize staff to prepare a microtransit service plan for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley service area. We did have a prior motion to approve, I believe, by
From Murrieta?
Murrieta, and a second by
Moreno Valley?
Moreno Valley. And Joan, would you do a roll call vote on this also, please?
Yes. City of Banning?
Yes.
City of Beaumont?
Aye.
City of Calamasa?
Yes.
City of Canyon Lake?
Aye.
City of Corona?
Yes.
City of Eastvale? City of Hemet?
Yes.
City of Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
City of Menifee,
Aye.
City of Moreno Valley,
Yes.
City of Marietta,
Yes.
City of Norco,
Yes.
City of Paris,
No.
City of Riverside,
No.
City of San Jacinto, City of Temecula,
Yes.
City of Wildemar,
Yes.
County of Riverside District 1,
Yes.
County of Riverside District 2, District 2,
Yes.
County of Riverside District 3,
Yes.
County of Riverside District 5.
Yes.
Chair, you have 17 yeses, 2 nos.
So the motion passes.
The motion passes. 17
You're-
affirmative.
You're on mute, Chair Krupa.
Okay. Thank you, Joan. Yes, it was 17 in favor and 2 against. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And thank you for all the input and the conversation on this. This is a very important service change that is putting through and plans trying to flesh this out going forward on different types of services. So thank you all for all of the conversation. Next, we're going on to board member comments. Are there any members in group number 1 that have anything to say?
Yes, Calamasa.
Yes, go ahead.
I learned last week of the passing of one of our fellow councilwomen, and I'd like to have a moment of silence for Carla Thornton, Moreno Valley.
Thank you, Linda. We will do that at the end of our meeting.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from group 1? Group 2?
Lake Elsinore.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Question to council before I make my comment. Can I comment on the last vote?
Sure.
Barbara? Not hearing a reply. I would assume that he can make a comment on it. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Yes, he can make a comment. Yes, that's he's able to do that.
Okay, thank you. First, I appreciate Director Melendez's motion. I always think it's a positive to send a positive message to employees, and that's why I voted to support his motion. I also voted to support the recommendation because employees are going to have legal protection anyway, and I don't see those two as different. Again, I think that it's important that we ensure that our employees understand that we appreciate what they do. And I think, at least from my interpretation of what the discussion was about, was that that's what we were trying to do. And so that's why I voted yes on both the motion and on the ultimate recommendation. And with that, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. That's exactly right. The employees are a priority. Anyone else from group 2 that wishes to make a comment? Group 3?
Moreno Valley.
Yes, go ahead, David.
Yeah, Chair. I just want to continue on that comment also from Tim. The reason I abstained is maybe in the future, in our agendas, when we have an item to discuss or approve, that it could be broken down into different items, 9, 10, 11. This way we can discuss just that one item separately. There was too many conversations on what and what not to do. That's why I abstain. But maybe in the future, we can break those down into agenda items. So we won't be as discussion or get confused as I was. And that's the reason I abstained, because I didn't really fully understand. So that's what I have to say on that. My second comment was Calamasa, Linda Molina said, we did lose a member of our family here in Moreno Valley, which is very hard for myself in particular, because I known Carla even before she became a council member, and we're both veterans, and I attended some events of hers, and I attended her retirement when she did retire from the military. Well, what I'm asking for, permission from staff also, is to announce, if I can, a private thing. Is that okay, Chairwoman, Madam Chair, if I can make an announcement?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. The city of Moreno Valley, not only with the council or our staff, but the residents, it's a GoFundMe page to help the daughter of Carla Thornton. If anyone wants to donate to the GoFundMe page, go into the city website under the memorial of Carla Thornton and donate money to the family, which will provide future education for the daughter that she left behind. Also, we have a memorial set up for Carla on February 5th at, I believe it's 10 o'clock at City Hall. We have a memorial center there, which will be doing a memorial service, and the family will be there also. So it is open to the public, but it's going to be limited seating. So if you want to get there early, if you want to attend, make arrangements with the city clerk's office for that reason. And if we can, by the RTA bylaws, if we can close this meeting in memory of Council Member Carla Thornton. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone else in group 3 that has any comments?
Director, I have one. That's Ted from Norco. For those of you who remember Berwin-Hanna, if you go on to the Riverside County Transportation web page, they did a virtual groundbreaking ceremony for the new Mayor Berwin-Hanna Bridge. It came out today on the Riverside County Transportation webpage. So I encourage you all to look at the virtual groundbreaking there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Anyone else in group 3? Group 4?
I just want to end with the fact what I said earlier. I think this organization has been about the employees. Each and every one of us has been supportive of the employees, and employees are first. That's what makes RTA such a great organization. That's why I served on it before. Those of you who don't know, I was on for almost 10 years. Served as chair for a year and a half. And this is a great organization, and the people are great, and the workers are great, and it just makes you want to continue to serve. So I know in my heart that it is about the employees, no matter how we want to word it or change the wording. It is about the employees, and they know it. And with that being said, I also want to thank David for sharing that about Carla. She was a great asset to the city of Moreno Valley. I had the opportunity to get to know her pretty well. And, when we lose somebody, whether they're serving on this board or not, they're still part of the family that we all belong to. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Larry, do you have any?
One last comment?
Jerry, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Sorry for being so late, but really quickly, we also support all of our employees. They're first and foremost the drivers have consistently done heroic acts over the years. we really appreciate them, and that's to be understood. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else in group 4? Seeing none, Mr. Rubio, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Chair Krupa. And I appreciate the healthy dialogue that just occurred. This is a great example of democracy, a difference of opinions, but ultimately the vote occurred. And I thank you for the direction you gave me. One of the most difficult tasks you could give your chief labor negotiator is the playbook on what to do with the opposing team listening in on it. And the union is, as you know, on the phone. And if you're telling me I have very specific direction on what I have to do and they're listening in, you've made my task very difficult. So thank you for, closing up that playbook. And now at least I have an opportunity to go in with a fair chance. And I can tell you that nobody, and you've heard the union say that, and I hope Motto's still on the line because both he and the president, Art Aguilar, have both called in, and they said that they hold up RTA as the example and all the properties where they serve, and that's Long Beach, it's Los Angeles Metro, which is the big kahuna in the country. It's Sunline Transit and it's Riverside Transit. They hold up Riverside Transit as how to do it right. This board has invested more in their employees, and this staff has taken more care and passion with their employees than any other transit. And you just did so. You just appropriated over $500,000 in testing. I don't know of anybody else who's doing that. We deeply care about our employees, and this board deeply cares about their employees, and we're going to continue to do the right thing. So thank you for that, and this is how it's done right. We may not always agree, but at the end of the day, we lock arms and we walk out, and we're one team. So I appreciate all of that. I unfortunately have some bad news to share with you. For you new board members, you don't know him, you've never met him. And for those of you who've been around, you've grown to appreciate him. He's a dear friend. Vince Russo isn't here today, and he's asked me to share with you that he's been diagnosed with lung cancer. He has it in both lungs, and he won't be coming back to RTA. He's in for the battle of his life. He's retiring effective Tuesday. He was planning to retire later this year. He deferred his retirement to stick with us and help RTA, help these employees, help his friends, help his colleagues through this pandemic. That's the people who work at RTA. And if anybody thinks that anyone else here is any different, they're grossly mistaken. Craig has deferred his retirement. I've deferred my retirement. There are a lot of people here who've deferred their retirements because we care about this place and we care about people. And Vince is a leader here. He's lost his mother, his father, his brother's currently battling stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And he's been trying since December to fight through this. He can't walk anymore. And he called me the other day and he said, Larry, I just can't do it. I can't go to work anymore. So he's retiring. He's going to beat this thing. If anybody can do it, he can. So I asked you to say a prayer for him. I asked you to keep him in mind because he'll come back if anybody can beat it. He's kind of a cross between John Wayne. He has the grit of John Wayne, but he has the kind of the attitude of Al Pacino. And he'll come back and he'll say his goodbyes here, and he'll go on and he's going to battle through and he'll be okay. So, Chair Krupa, that concludes my announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Please, on behalf of the board, send our best and our best wishes to Vince. He is, he's a fighter, and he's one of those individuals. He's part of the old school, and I'll talk with you later tomorrow about an idea I have for him. But in the meantime, thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. And it's been quite a meeting. So with that, our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 25th, 2021 at 2 p.m. It will undoubtedly be a Zoom meeting. And so we will close with prayers for Vince Rousseau and prayers and in memory of Carla Thornton. Thank you all so much for being here, and say prayers for all of us. We'll all get through this. Thank you so much.
Good night, Madam Chair. Good night, staff.
Thank
and
you.
colleagues.
Thank you, Linda. Ray Santos.